All right, let's jump right into a huge one today. We're going to tackle one of the biggest questions there is. What exactly is truth? We'll be breaking down one author's really interesting logical framework for how to think about this whole thing.
I mean, this is a question people have wrestled with for centuries, right? Philosophers, scientists, regular people. Everyone's taken a crack at it, and there are just so many different answers out there. It's one of those things that feels deeply personal, but also completely universal. So usually when we think about it, we kind of fall into one of two camps. Is truth just a gut feeling? Something you just know is right, deep down, even if you can't really explain why? Or is it something more concrete, something you can actually prove with logic and evidence? The source material we're looking at today really leans into that second idea, that a logical approach can give us a much clearer and, frankly, more powerful definition.
Okay, so to get our heads around this, we're not going to start with some heavy, abstract philosophy. Nope. We're going to start with something super simple, something we've all seen, boiling a pot of water.
Now, look closely at these two statements. They seem kind of similar, but there is a subtle and absolutely critical difference between them. On the one hand, you've got what looks like a solid fact. On the other, you've got more of a general rule. So which one is actually closer to the real truth?
Well, here's the twist. According to the author, that first statement, water boils at 100 degrees Celsius, isn't the whole story. It's really just a conclusion based on an observation. And get this, it's only true at sea level. If you go up a mountain where the air pressure is different, the boiling point changes. But that second statement, applying heat to water makes it boil, that's what the author calls a predictive model. It's a cause and effect relationship that's true everywhere. It's a much bigger, more powerful concept.
So, this simple example of boiling water is actually the key to a whole framework for understanding truth. The author lays it out for us in 3 really clear steps.
And the progression here is everything. You don't just jump straight to the end. You start with the raw data. You observe the facts. Then you put on your detective hat and you look for connections, for correlations between those facts. But, and this is the crucial part, the final step is taking that correlation and testing it over and over until it becomes a reliable, predictive model. That's when you've established a truth. And that brings us right to the source's core definition. See, a truth isn't just a random fact. It's a proven relationship that always, and I mean always, gives you the same result from the same set of ingredients. You could almost think of it like a law of science, like gravity. It's a model that lets you predict what's going to happen next. Okay, this all makes a lot of sense for science, right? It's clean, it's logical, but what about us? What about people? What happens when you try to apply this neat framework to the messy, complicated, unpredictable world of human life? Yeah, this is where it gets really tricky. Unlike our pot of water, where we know all the variables, human interactions are packed with hidden ones. We can't see someone's secret motives or their private attitudes. We don't know all the outside pressures they're dealing with. It's like trying to do a science experiment with a million hidden factors you don't even know exist. And on top of all that, you have the biggest factor of all, time. The source makes this incredible point that to see the true cause and effect play out in human events, to see the real consequences of certain actions, can often take way, way longer than a single person's lifetime. So if it's that complex and the timeline is that massive, how on earth are we supposed to find any truths about people at all? It seems kind of impossible, right? Well, the author suggests we just need to change our perspective. The key, we're told, is to zoom out. Stop looking at history as just a list of random events. Instead, we need to search for the essence of what's going on. We need to look for those deep down human motivations, the patterns of behavior that just keep popping up over and over again across the centuries. Now, to really grapple with this massive timeline, the author introduces a pretty abstract idea. They suggest a thought experiment. What if we viewed the people in history not by their single short lives, but as spirits that have a continuity beyond any one lifetime? Now, this is presented as a mental tool, a way to help us zoom out far enough to see those really long-term patterns of action and consequence. Because it's only when you take that super long-term view that you can start to see these timeless truths that act like predictive models for human behavior. I mean, take a classic saying like this one, what you sow is what you reap. That's a perfect example. It's a predictive model of cause and effect, but you often can't see it play out in a day or a year. You have to see the bigger picture. So, if we follow this entire logical framework, this idea that truth is a consistent predictive model, it leads us to a direct collision with a really popular idea you hear all the time today. You know the one. You have your truth and I have my truth.
But according to the framework we've been building, that doesn't really hold up. The author argues that we don't actually have different truths. What we have are different conclusions. We're all looking at the same situation, but we have different information or different perspectives, so we interpret it differently. But the underlying truth, the actual predictive model of what's happening, is singular.
And that's really the logical endpoint of this whole argument. If truth is a predictive model, then for the exact same set of facts, there can only be one truth. And so, this whole explainer leaves us with a pretty big question to chew on. If you start seeing truth not as just a personal feeling, but as a reliable, predictive model for how reality works, how does that change the way you view the world? It's a profound shift, and it's definitely worth thinking about. Thanks for diving into this with me.